Good morning, and thank you for joining me here at the Bermudiana Beach Resort, where I'm joined by Kirk Bridge, the Permanent Secretary for the Ministry of Public Works, Paul Martin, the General Manager of the Bermuda Housing Corporation, and Joy Simons, the HR Manager at BHC. Today, I want to report on the refocusing of this project, but first, some history is in order so that there's a full understanding of the journey to this point. In 2007, the private sector Grand Atlantic Residences project was a 78-unit development to add additional freehold condos to the housing market. To assist the project's progression in 2009, the Bermuda Housing Corporation became involved to purchase the development, expected to be completed in 2012. However, in 2013, the global crash of the housing market, including the decline in housing prices, decline in demand for housing, and a false narrative over the safety of the cliffs here, to name a few, had an impact on unit sales. Only one was sold. The then OBA government elected to place the sale of condo units on the property in abeyance while an assessment of the direction was considered. A request for information on the property was issued in March 2013, with submissions due by May 2013. After analysis, meetings, and a review of the submissions, the then government entered into a memorandum of understanding with the selected proponent to convert the property into a condo hotel. The MOU was initially for a period of 120 days and was then extended to March 2015. After the expiration of this MOU, the BHC negotiated with the bank to obtain a term loan to refinance the short-term loan used for the original purchase of the Grand Atlantic condo units. Following this, a second RFI was issued in May 2016, with submissions due by the end of June 2016. After analysis, meetings, and a review of the submissions, a proposal was selected and approved in October 2016 to convert the property into a residential condo boutique hotel with units available for sale. In July 2017, an election was held, which resulted in a change of government. The new PLP government continued negotiations with the selected co-developer, who was approved by the previous government to develop a condo hotel on the Grand Atlantic site, and up until 2019, the project progressed well, including the government announcing a brand deal with Hilton Resorts to increase the caliber and attractiveness of the property. However, in early 2020, the COVID-19 pandemic started to take hold on the world, which made meeting sales targets virtually impossible. The pandemic resulted in those targets not being reached to meet debt financing conditions, and therefore an alternative financing facility was negotiated with the bank. After this, and again attributed to the COVID-19 pandemic, in 2021, the co-developer which was selected in 2016, and the current government agreed to an amicable separation. The government and the BHC remain committed to the completion of this project, as at the time there was a need for additional hotel beds as the Fairmont Southampton Hotel was shuttered. As you can tell, there have been a lot of ups and downs with this project. More difficulty came with the startling post-COVID inflation boom, which saw the cost of building materials soaring over 50% in some instances for the basic supplies such as concrete and steel. 2 loans totaling $35 million were secured to continue construction. They remain in place. Despite these challenges, the project continued, but with pre-sales still not materializing and costs increasing, the government decided to investigate the business model of the property further. The Ministry of Public Works retained an expert who found that there was an inherent failure in the current business model. In general terms, the root cause of many of the issues associated with the project, including the lack of sales, stem from the direction set by the former development partner. The former developer's projections were overly simplistic, and the current team followed the same plan, but lacked the experience to navigate what would have already been an extremely challenging brownfield hotel development project from inception. After this assessment, the government engaged the international accounting firm Ernst & Young, EY, who have a unit that specializes in evaluating distressed hotel developments, to conduct an evaluation to determine if the Bermudiana Beach Resort project was still viable. The assessment looked at 4 options. 1, to continue the existing course, a boutique hotel with condominium sales. 2, upon completion of construction, sell units individually as condominiums. And 3, upon completion of construction, run as a standard boutique hotel, or convert units into residential rental apartments and complete construction. Based on this analysis, the market dynamics, supply and demand trends, product fit, and strategic alignment with key initiatives, the 2 most viable uses determined to be options 3 and 4. In performing a financial assessment of the 2 most feasible options, the apartment scenario, option 4, provides the highest net present value as a result of strong demand, limited comparable supply, high rental rates, and significantly reduced operating risk as compared to the hotel option. While generating revenue to pay back outstanding debt remains a priority, the analysis indicated there was substantial resale value to be gained by holding the asset until cash flows stabilize and returns from the apartment approach $35 million debt in its entirety. To accomplish option 4, there remains the requirement to complete the construction. Given the proposed product can fit with the current development profile, apartment rentals would help to minimize capital investment with minimum additional expenditures required beyond the completion budget, while also providing the opportunity to reduce investment further by limiting some of the proposed amenity space. Therefore, the ministry will provide the BHC with additional funding up to a maximum amount of $5 million to complete the construction. This is compared to the approximately $9 million that will be needed for hotel completion. With this recommendation, and taking into consideration the recent announcement for the commencement of the Fairmont Southampton redevelopment project, which would see 593 new hotel beds becoming available by the end of 2026, and reflecting on the priorities and principles of this government, a cabinet decision was made to pivot the Bermudiana Beach Resort to residential rental units. This was a difficult decision, as much effort was placed into converting the property into a hotel. But when presented with the data and the expert advice, the government chose to change course yet again, but one that we believe is in the best interest of the country and one that will prove beneficial to the economy in the long run. Now, all these changes come at a significant cost. Over $100 million plus will have been spent on this property over the 12 years, an incredible sum that reflected the change in direction with each pivot of the project to respond to the prevailing circumstances at each juncture. Clearly, no one would set out to spend this kind of money on such a project, but at each juncture, those making the decision believed it was the right one and funds would be recovered. An equally incredible set of circumstances have beset this project, and the aim now is to get as high a return as one can to mitigate the investment. The challenge with housing impacts all segments of our community, which includes our international business sector as well. The need to house this sector puts pressure on the local housing market. The analysis indicates that this change in direction would provide a means to cater to this sector directly and thus indirectly free up the local housing market to be accessed by more Bermudians. Therefore, by December this year, this new proposed direction will see 94 studio, 1, 2, and 3-bedroom residential units of beachfront property added to fulfill a market demand for additional rental housing. The Bermudiana Apartments will be a multi-family community catering to young professionals and couples with amenities including beach access, indoor and outdoor fitness area, a pool area with the potential for a restaurant and spa in the future. While no firm decisions have been made regarding rental pricing, we recognize the added amenities, location, convenience, and money already invested will necessitate a certain price tag. The projections estimate rental values between $3,000 and $7,000. Nevertheless, we believe the market research indicates that these units will help equalize the rental and buying market costs across the country and will promote better quality and standard of living overall, ensuring that people from all economic standings can secure a property at a reasonable and affordable price. To more directly assist, however, the government will consider how it may provide means for families already on our list to gain access to the property through existing BHC housing initiatives and support. Announcements will be made in due course regarding management of the property and when the apartments will be available for rent. In this government's 2020 election platform under the category for improving the quality of life of all Bermudians, this administration pledged to continue increasing the stock of affordable housing throughout the country, expand rent-geared-to-income programs, and construct residential developments in Bermuda's exclusive economic zone to increase the supply of quality, affordable residential accommodation and drive down rental costs. This move does just that. As the old saying goes, a rising tide lifts all boats. And by adding to the housing market, regardless of the sector, we are helping to address the needs of all residents. On Monday, I met with the board of the Bermuda Housing Corporation to advise them of Cabinet's decision, and subsequently this morning, I have met with the staff here at Bermudiana Beach Resort and the Bermuda Housing Corporation. Following this press conference, Hilton will be advised, and there is a break fee that will be payable for this action. There will likely be separations at BBR, but those will be discussed with staff individually. We will operate fully under the terms and conditions of the Employment Act, but our actions will be carried out with compassion and sympathy with the affected staff. Over the next several weeks, as this new direction evolves further, there will be additional public announcements. This government is committed to doing all we can to increase the adequate housing options for Bermudians, and we will not stop delivering on that mandate. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. At this time, we're going to take a few questions, Minister, starting with Bermuda Broadcasting.
Thank you, Minister. Elisa Bernardo with Bermuda Broadcasting. Now, earlier this year, I was here with you in April, and we toured the site, and you were excited at the prospect of it being a Hilton boutique resort condo project. When exactly did you make the decision to turn about on that plan?
So the decision was made at Cabinet last week, Tuesday.
Earlier in April, there were also 2 deposits secured for units for the previous model. Will those funds be going back to the individuals who invested in the possibility of Bermudiana Beach Resort?
So we only had one sale originally, and that person was, the unit was purchased back, and they were provided with accommodation elsewhere. So there is no outstanding debt to any individual.
Understood. And there was also plans for a proposed events lawn to use a portion of Southlands Park. Has that been dropped as a result of the new plans?
No, that is still under consideration. I have received, I think it's 271 objections. We're wading our way through those, and we'll make a decision. It still provides an opportunity for this site to generate revenue. But at the end of the day, something needs to be done there, because most of the trees that are presently on the site are casuarinas. And they're the cause of the most recent collapse of part of the cliff next door on the Bermuda government property that has to be addressed.
Lastly, is there any cost with you breaking the partnership with Hilton?
I'm sorry?
Is there any cost associated to you, breaking away from the partnership with Hilton?
Other than the financial one. I'm sure that we'll know better after the conversation and within the hour. But I suspect that they've had this conversation before. And we have a good working relationship with them. And that once we explain the circumstances, there'll be no hard feelings. And we have a penalty that we must pay, and we will.
Good afternoon, Minister. Gareth Finnegan, Royal Gazette. Just to confirm a few things, you said that that 94 residential units will be ready by the end of this year, December 24.
The site is 90%, 96% complete.
But you then later said a decision had been made when they'll go on the market. You said that's still to be decided, or will they be on the market from, say, January?
I expect that they'll be on the market by late January. Our initial discussions have indicated that we will not populate all 94 units on the same day. We will do it in phases. So we're likely to offer 20 units, and we'll offer them in tranches of 20 units, so that there's peace on the property as opposed to 94 families trying to move in at the same time.
But considering that you were totally unable to sell any of the units under the previous model, how convinced are you, how confident are you that when they go on the market, on the rental market, then they will be snapped up?
Well, part of the assessment that was done by EY was that research in comparison properties similar to this one, looking at the demand for this type of accommodation as rental accommodation as opposed to purchasing. There is all indications are that because of the nature of this back and forth exercise over 12 years, that any potential purchaser wanted to see the product finished as opposed to the fits and starts that existed over the 12 years. But the assessment has indicated that there is more revenue to be generated from renting these units as opposed to hotel, and there's a significantly reduction in the risk involved in doing a hotel versus rental units.
Why did it take so long to come to that conclusion?
Sorry?
Why did it take so long to come to that conclusion? That we were actually better off renting them out rather than running it as a hotel?
Did you hear my statement? So we were faced with significant challenges every step of the way.
Right.
And so when you're faced with challenges, you have to reassess your position. And so in this case, when we were here in March, everything looked as if it would proceed to conclusion. But the fact that there still is money that is required to finish the project causes a pause. We've spent over $100 million on this exercise. And so it requires that there be a reassessment. And so when you hire somebody like EY, who have expertise in this area, and they make a recommendation, you'd be foolhardy not to accept the recommendation.
Right.
It offers the best potential for the government to recoup some of its investment than running a hotel. That's the bottom line.
Okay. And just to confirm, Hilton haven't actually been informed of this change in development yet, is that right?
They will be informed within the hour.
Okay. And could you just give a ballpark figure on the break fee? Are we talking hundreds of thousands of dollars, or you must have some idea?
It's under $500,000, I'll say.
Okay. And one final question on this matter. I mean, the government has always insisted that its two priorities regarding accommodation is to provide A, affordable housing, and B, more hotel beds. And this project doesn't do that, does it?
It doesn't do that exclusively. There is also a challenge in the country in terms of providing housing. Let's even forget international business. If you look internally at public works and government itself, bringing in people from overseas has been a great challenge in terms of finding them decent accommodation that is affordable. And in some instances, those people have decided not to come to Bermuda. And so it makes life very difficult to support a significant pillar of the economy, i.e. international business, without the ability to house. That means they cannot expand either. And so the people that are coming from international business are placing pressures on the local market that affects the average Bermudian because they can pay more, and I don't know anybody who would not accept more rent if they could get it. And so this goes some ways to addressing both of those pillars. As I indicated, rising tides support all boats. And any increase in housing in the country, whether it's government or private sector, assists us in being able to address the affordable housing issue across the board.
Is it a case of the greater the supply, the price goes down? If there's a glut of properties on the market, then that's going to help?
That's part of it, but the underlying reason for this decision is that the government is tired of investing money in a product without any return. And this offers us the best and most return that we can get for this project. And so we're going on that course.
I have two other questions, if you don't mind. Just on two other matters. First of all, lifeguards. We had another drowning death this week. Has that in any way, in the last 48 hours, strengthened your resolve to perhaps do something more to get more lifeguards in? Has it sort of pressed the urgency button?
My resolve don't need to be strengthened. We have been trying this year both with offering more money and doing various things to attract people to be lifeguards. It's been mission impossible, quite frankly. Very few Bermudians are interested in doing that job. We used to rely on overseas college students to come and do that. That number has reduced. I think that there has to be an acknowledgement, and there is, that the cruise ship season has increased by about 2 months. And so we are now looking at and doing the research to see whether we can do full-time lifeguards with the ability to have them doing some other things in the winter months when few people are on the beach. But it is something that we take seriously and are taking serious attempts to address. But I think it's also a responsibility on the people that go to the beaches anywhere in the world. When there's posted that there are no lifeguards and don't go in the water, there should be some sense of personal responsibility that they're not going to do that. The signs are not up for fun. It is identifying a real threat that has been validated by the deaths that we've had. Now, are we sorry about those deaths? Would we like to see? Of course. And that is what has prompted us to do, and we've been very quiet about this because we've had questions from various media and we've answered them in a very, not a very significant way. But there is a statement coming in a very significant way that will set out all of the things that we've done to try and address the problem this year and what plans we have going forward to still try and address the situation. I think, and I'll put down a marker, all the indications are at this stage that Bermudians are not going to do this. And so right off the bat, that means we're going to have to look overseas and come up with another plan so that we're able to provide the protection that both our locals and tourists deserve.
And one final question, Minister, regarding potholes. Any update on that? I know this year's budget, your ministry was granted $5 million for road surfacing. How much of that have you spent, and what proportion of that figure has been spent on repairing potholes rather than just resurfacing
Okay,
roads?
so there are two different things.
Yeah.
Potholes, newsflash. When you get the type of rain that we've had in the last month or 2 years, you're going to have potholes. That's the bottom line, and they're going to increase. The addressing of potholes, I actually am quite impressed with. I think that those people who have reported them to the email address, and we're doing some things to fine-tune that, actually works very well. I'll give you a practical example. At about 8:30 yesterday morning, I think the Premier was taking his children to school and could send an email saying there's a massive pothole on Cedar Avenue outside Tusa House. The superintendent of highways, within 7 minutes, had answered him and said it'll be addressed today. And I could tell you where every pothole was on the drive from Middle Ridge, Southampton to town. And I see that the system is working, because when I avoid it in the morning and I come the next morning, it's been corrected, it tells me that the system's working.
You're going to have to wrap it up, Gareth.
No, they're not going down.
Okay.
They won't go down until the roads are repaved completely. And so let me answer that part of it. I can't tell you how much we've spent, but nowhere near the $1 million I would have thought. So we have paved all of Harrington Sound Road. We're doing Flats Hill now. We have to pause the northern lane paving because one of the utilities needs to pull some cables so that people can still have service. So we're probably going to move from that site to somewhere else. And so we will move to Warwick, where the state of the road is the worst in the country, and we'll start paving there. The challenge there has been, Balco have paused their trenching, but more importantly, they've paused they need to dig pull holes, which are 20 feet by 5 feet, every 800 feet, and pull the cables. We're not going to pave the roads whilst that is still outstanding. So we actually had a meeting yesterday with Balco, and they had somewhat good news. They're waiting on one more approval to be able to restart the work in the west, doing pull holes in November, so next month. We're optimistic they'll get that permission, and if they do, then we will have a plan where we can come behind them and start paving and reinstating the roads going west permanently. That's what's going to reduce the reoccurrence of potholes ultimately. But I think that we have to live with the reality that currently we got another set of rain. We're going to get more potholes, and some of those that have been repaired are going to reopen. If people actually utilize the mechanisms that are in place to report them, they'll find that they're being fixed. I mean, there is a desire and a position that some people take that it will only happen if they either email the Premier or me. Well, that'll happen, but it'll be delayed, because on Tuesdays I'm not going to read no emails. And if you use the website, the two people that look at those incoming things will take immediate action to see that the work gets done.
Thank you very much, Minister, for your presentation on the Bermudiana Beach Resort. And that concludes today's news conference.